God's judgments is still for the church. And all these folks that want to speak against it. The next day, the whole congregation stood against Moses. What? Didn't we just say everybody ought to be for Moses at this point? The whole congregation stood against Moses and said that he had destroyed the people of God. The real men of God got destroyed. Man. Moses knew that it angered the Lord. He said, judgment's going to come on these folks. But before he could make an atonement for the people, the plague had already begun. 14,700 people lost their life before Moses and Aaron could make intercession. Man. They all died that day. And the only reason there wasn't more is because the man of God stood in. The church stood up and halted the plagues of God. Some would say the only reason America still has any hope today is because there is still a remnant of the church. There is still a remnant of praying people. I know you can hear anything and see anything, but I saw a prophecy the other day. I take those very lightly. This prophecy was concerning the election of 2020. Y'all have probably seen some of this stuff. And this man was saying that God had shown him a vision, and he was given the results that was going to be, and everything that was going to take place as far as it. There is a lot of that is out there. And this man said in his prophecy, because there is still a man of prayer, a man of prayer. I was waiting on him to say it was him, that everything was being spared in the United States because of his prayer. But he never said that, so I was thankful for that. But I do believe that because there is a remnant of the true church of God, I believe that is why we still have hope in America of God's blessings. So don't lose faith. Don't lose hope today, because there is still a remnant. And because of the man of God, more were not killed that day. So thankful for that. Chapter number 17. Yes, sir.
You know, we cannot put our faith in the things of this world, whether it be good or bad.
Right.
If the economy is good or the economy is bad, our faith cannot be in anything in this world.
That's it.
It has to be in God.
That's right.
We do have Christians today that, if you look at the economy of their land, they have no hope.
Right.
Their hope has to be in Jesus Christ.
That's right.
That's it. They're like China today.
Right.
More being saved there than any other nation today.
Right.
And they don't have no hope in their land.
Right.
Their land has no hope for them.
That's it. That's it.
We keep our faith in Jesus Christ regardless of what goes on around us.
Right. Yeah, their faith in God's a lot stronger than ours. Their faith in the Lord, because they have to depend on Him for everything. Oh, absolutely. That's exactly right. You got that right. That's it. Right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Chapter 17 was a pretty short chapter. It talked about Moses. God commanded Moses to take the rods of the people that wanted to have any power and bring those rods in, then bring Aaron's rod in. And whoever's rod would bring about buds, whichever one would bloom, that would be the man that God favored. And they brought these rods, they put it in the tabernacle. Moses went in the next day. It not only budded, it not only bloomed, but it produced almonds overnight. That's pretty impressive right there. And God said, I tell you what, you go out there and you show them, but you bring it back and you put it before the ark. You keep it in here. And so pretty impressive in chapter number 17. Chapter number 18, God speaks to Aaron. He's talking about the responsibilities of him and his sons as far as the tabernacle. Aaron's sons is not going to receive any land when they get in to Canaan. But they're going to receive a tenth of everything that comes into the tabernacle. And he says to make up for the fact that you're not going to have land, you're not going to have an inheritance in there, They're just going to bring the tenth in, and everything that is brought in will be yours. And so that was there. So tithe, 10%, was pretty important to them. Chapter number 19. Eleazar is commanded to bring the red heifer, to kill it on the outside of the camp, to sprinkle it. There was something in here, and I've read this before, but just the words and the way that it was mentioned. It was called the water of separation. And I got to, that kind of struck me as interesting. I've done a little study on the water of separation, exactly what that was. So they were to burn the red heifer. And anybody that came in contact with anything dead, they were to go outside of the camp. And they were to take a hyssop, which was a branch. They were to take that, and they were to dip it in the water, the holy water, the water of separation, and these ashes. And after they had come in contact with someone or something that was dead, they had to go out there, dip it in the water of separation, into the ashes, and they had to anoint their body on the third day after they touched something dead. And God said that you'll stay separated for 7 days. You stay unclean for 7 days. So even after that, 4 more days, they had to remain unclean. But he said that after 7 days, if you didn't do that on the third day, you're still unclean. He took it pretty serious. Even if, now this was interesting to me, even if you were in the tent where somebody died, you didn't have to touch the body. But if you were in the tent and somebody died in that tent, you were unclean for 7 days. You had to go out, sanctify yourself. If there was a vessel that was open in the tent where somebody died, it was considered unclean. Vessel would need to be destroyed. What does the Bible say about sin? It's death. The wages of sin is death. Take death in the Old Testament and equate that to sin in the New Testament. That even in the presence of sin, wow. You know why he said flee from the very appearance of evil? God doesn't want His people to be in the presence of sin or death. We see it even in the Old Testament law. That even being in the presence, and we have become so lackadaisy about this, about what we watch on TV, what we allow our children, where we go and what we listen to, what we watch. He said, flee from that. Flee from that. It's like death. That was chapter 19. Chapter number 20. It begins very sad with the death of Miriam and Kadesh. There's no water for the congregation. So you know, of course, what they done. They murmured and they complained. Moses goes to the Lord. He tells them the people, they're upset. And God says, I'm going to give them water. I want you to take the rod. I want you to go out and I want you to speak to that rock. And I'll make water flow and the whole congregation will have water. What did Moses do? He got the rod. He goes out in front of the people and he says, you rebels, we will provide. We will provide. Me and Aaron are going to provide you water today. Ay, ay, ay. This is going to cost him greatly. He said, we're going to do it. And then, instead of speaking to the rock like God commanded him to do, he struck it twice. Struck the rock, water came out. God told Moses, he said, I want you to get Aaron. This is it for Aaron. I want you to get Aaron going up. They took credit for this. God said, Moses, you're not going to be allowed to enter into the promised land because you failed to believe me. That was the reason why Moses was told he couldn't go into the promised land, because you failed to believe me. In other words, he didn't give God credit for what was fixing to take place. Anything good in our life is from God. And he says, I want you to take Aaron up there, and I want you to take off his priestly garments, because this is the end of the road for Aaron. Took him up into the mount, brought Eleazar with him. He took the garments off of Aaron, and we know that's where Aaron died. Gave those garments and put them on Eleazar, and he became that priest, the mouthpiece for God. Oh, let's see. We got time for just a couple more. We're going to finish up Numbers next week. Y'all might as well be ready. We're going to put on, we got to roll faster. I take too long on this. Chapter number 21, some of the Israelites captured by the Canaanites in chapter 21. They prayed for the Lord to give them victory over the Canaanites. People began to murmur again about the food and the water. God sent what? Serpents into the camp. They hadn't learned not to complain. Serpents, those that were bitten, they cried out to Moses, we've sinned, we've sinned. Get rid of these serpents. So Moses made a fiery serpent and he put it on a pole. And if any man that was bitten by a serpent, when he looked on the brass serpent, he was healed. Can you say that God's ways are not our ways? We got bitten by a snake, you know what we'd say? Moses, suck the poison out. And Moses said, look at the snake. No, I need a meat. Look at the snake. God's ways are not our ways. Don't get so stuck in your ways that you think God's going to do it the same way every single time. Is it not interesting the way God does some things? The way that God answers our prayers? The way the Spirit of God will move? It's the fear of the Lord. We don't know. And I can assure you this. When you think you got it figured out, you're wrong. When I think I got it figured out, I'm wrong. God help us to tell God how the church needs to be run. God help us that we think we know enough, been there and done it, that it's going to be this way we're going to do it. Lord help us. All those, Moses, he lifted that thing up, everybody that looked at it. Israel asked Satan, the king of the Amorites, if they could pass through. He attacked them. The Israelites overtook him, conquered the land. They continued conquering the land. Soon they went into the battle with Og in Bashan. The Lord comforted Moses and said for him not to fear. He was going to give him victory over Og. We better wind her up right there. We're going to run long. Chapter number 22, we get into some very, very, very good chapters. Next week, I promise you, we're going to finish up Numbers next week before we get way, 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 way behind. And so I hope that you're continuing in your reading, keeping up with this. Again, 4 chapters. You can finish it. Hey, I want you to do me a favor. And I know we just read it and we go through it. Something that's interesting is when you get over into chapter number 26, they do another census on the children of Israel. God tells them again, we know they've done it in the very beginning of Numbers. They do another one in chapter number 26. Go and look at those numbers and compare the numbers in the tribes, the numbers of the men of war, 20 and older, with what they are in chapter number 26. So go back to the beginning of Numbers, look at those, and then go to chapter number 26, and look at the numbers and tell me why they're different. Well, let me just ask you. Why is there less? And we'll see this next week. Why is there less in chapter 26 than there was at the beginning? Men of war. They took a census when they first came in. Moses and Aaron took the census. And now we look at it and there is less men of war after these years. They've started dying. Those men that were there. It even says in chapter number 26, if you look at that none of the people that are numbered in 20 and up, none of the people of war were counted last time. And their fathers and those that were older have began to die out. When you look at the count, What God said was going to happen, you see it in literal form when you go through this. There is less. I wrote it down, and we'll look at this next week. Let me see. Every tribe decreased. There was one I thought that increased. Judah, tribe of Judah. It increased, actually. Issachar, he actually increased. A few did, but most of these tribes actually. And no, I'm wrong on those. I didn't label my columns. I just wrote them down. Let's see. Decreased, increased. Yeah, tribe of Judah did increase. Anyway, we'll look at it next week. I think I got all mixed up. Okay. The numbers are different because they're dying out. And so take a look at that. That's just interesting stuff. The promises of God and what He's doing is it's amazing to see this unfold. But here's what we find all through this, and we're done. Everything God was doing was for a relationship with His people. Everything God was doing. And here's what we know. God desires a relationship with His people so much that He'll go to the great extents to have a relationship with you. He will bless those that will bless you. When we talk about Israel, He will bless those that bless Israel, and He will curse those that curse Israel. And with His church today that has been extended out to us, you and me, bless one another, love one another. This is not a competition. We shouldn't be in contention with anybody in the church. Bless one. You want to see the blessings of the Lord in your life? Number one, desire a relationship with God and desire a relationship with His people. Don't isolate yourself away from God or His people. Draw together. Come together with God's people. You will see the blessings of the Lord. Find this all through the Word of God. He said, they'll know you're my disciples because you love each other. Man, church, let's love each other. Draw together. Fellowship under the love of God. Okay? Any comments, anything?
We've been grafted into the Jews, Israelites, God's children.
Right.
We've been grafted into that family.
That's right.
But we receive the blessings, and sometimes all we want to look at is the blessings.
Right.
But everywhere He had blessings, He also brought curses when they disobeyed
That's it.
that family.
Yes,
So
sir.
you say, well, I want to be a child of God. Remember, you better obey Him.
That's right. Yeah.
You better do everything He says.
That's exactly right.
You're going to enjoy the rest of the family curse that goes with it.
You're exactly right, Brother James. I see it. That's good. Yeah. Well, brother, I can assure you I'm no Moses, but hey, if that's what it takes, I'm gonna be preaching for this Sunday morning. So yeah. Better yet, I'm gonna let you preach it Sunday morning, brother. It sounds like you got this thing. So hey, we're gonna have pastor appreciation Sunday morning, and I think God's anointed. It was obvious. They spoke against Him, and there was punishment there. So God He's got His hand, and like I said, I think that's the church, and I think we can see those blessings in God's favor as the church when we obey God. So absolutely, that's very insightful, Joe. Remember that. Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I want to encourage you. Continue reading. Continue pushing forward. I did not look at the calendar today to see exactly where we're supposed to be. Anybody know right offhand where we ought to be? What's that? Ruth. You got to read Ruth today. Well, I preached from that Sunday, so I got that covered. I had read it before Sunday morning. So, but I'm not quite up to par. But you got time to catch up. Plenty of time to catch up. So keep pushing. Stay in there. And I want to encourage you to continue to study and read. If you hadn't started, listen, don't worry, you're not too late. Let's read this thing through. We got plenty of time to make this up. I always say every year, when I get to Psalms, Brother James, I'm going to make up a lot of ground because I can read several chapters in a day. And so, but anyway, don't bank on that. So, okay, all right. We appreciate you. Looking forward to Sunday and all the Lord's got in store for us. So invite somebody to come be a part. And just want to tell you, the way the Lord's been moving and blessing, I just appreciate what God's doing in our services. So, okay. All right, ladies, they're starting a women's study. What do you call it? Book club or? Anyway, they're starting a women's study. Whatever. They're going to be reading a book and studying it. And so, if you are interested in that, it's going to be taking place. Y'all help me out. Is it Mondays? Mondays at 3. Okay, Mondays at 3 o'clock. They're going to be studying this. They've got the book picked out. Now, here's what we need. We need to know how many books to order. So, if you will, I think there's a sign-up sheet back there by the sound booth. Here's what's going to happen. Sister Benita is going to order enough books for those that have signed up. Okay? So she wasn't real clear Monday morning on exactly how many she needed to order. So I said, well, get them to write it down. That's the best way to do it. So if you're interested in being a part of that, it's going to be a Priscilla Shire book, if I'm not mistaken. Is it Kingdom Woman? Is that the one it is? Okay. And so if you'd like to read that, kind of go through that with Sister Benita and these ladies, it's going to be doing that. Mondays at 3. I know that can be kind of difficult for some, but if you'd like to be a part of that, just sign up, and that way she can get the books ordered. So that'll help us out. Okay? All right. Anything else before we dismiss? All right, if you will, let's just stand. I appreciate you again. Your faithfulness, appreciate you being here tonight, and you just being faithful to the Word of God. Don't forget, write down these things, interesting things, questions, and I appreciate those of you that have reached out. We've talked about a lot of this before we ever get here, and so I enjoyed that. So continue that. Okay? Anything else? All right. Brother Judd, you mind praying dismissing us tonight in prayer, please?